of our podcast with Daniel Villani. And hope you're well, Daniel.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Hope you're doing well as well, Tim.
Thank you. So today's podcast is about using AI to automate data mappings. Over to you, Daniel.
All right, perfect. So the goal of today is I wanted to show 3 different use cases of using AI. One is you have a set of source data, you want to apply some mappings to it that are known. I know some of the feedback I've gotten from some of the other sessions that we've done is, it's great that you're walking us through, different prompts that you had. Can we do any of it live? So, the first one, we're going to show a live example against the better judgment of when you do things live, things always break. But just with that in mind, we'll because I really want everyone to understand this is something that can be replicated. It's not something that's just hey, I had hours to go and play around with this, and so therefore it must work, right? So we'll go through that first example live. The other ones I figured because it would take a bit of time, and there are a bunch of prompts that go back and forth. We'll walk through. So example number 2 is going to be, I'm given a source file, I'm given a destination or target file, but I don't know what mappings happened between the 2 of them. Can we have AI, figure out what happened to get from file 1 to file 2? And then the third one is, we know source and target format. They might be in different formats where it might take code to go and generate to generate the second file. How can we have the AI go and generate that file?
Thank you so much.
All right, so let me share my screen over here. And all right, let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see the screen.
Okay, perfect. So first thing, one of the other amazing use cases of AI is, in the past, if we wanted to generate sample data, we'd have to go into, something like Excel and, do random number generators and, all those kinds of things in order to, come up with sample data. With AI, we can actually ask it, in a case like this, I said, can we get a 20-line sample chart of accounts balance sheet? And I just specify some things. I want a 6-digit account number in there, a text description, and a type in there of whether it's an asset, liability, revenue, expense, etc. It tells me, okay, this is great. Gives us a chart of accounts. It doesn't, and part of the reason I wanted to show this too is that the output that you get isn't always right or perfect or what you're envisioning it to be. So this is an example of a very flat list of of an account structure over here. So we can do better. We can ask it to give us a roll-up structure. It goes and takes a pass at doing that. And I realized that it's now rolling revenues and expenses up to balance sheet totals over here, which is still not what we're looking for. So we can ask it to refine a little bit further there as well. So the point of this is that you may not always get what you want in the first shot. There might be some assumptions it's making behind the scenes that that's in there, but it's just just because I'm presenting on this and I've done it many times and all that doesn't mean that it's going to work on the first shot. A lot of this is going to be iteration. It's going to be practice. It's going to be understanding what are the types of outputs I get for the types of inputs that I put in. So we finally get a good, balance sheet structure, income statement structure that, that we can work with over here. And it gave me, about 20 rows of data. So I just went and, put that into a text file that, that we can use to generate a mapping. So what I wanted to show in this, in this first example here is we have a starting point of a mapping, and let's just take this and, create some simple mappings off of this. I'm going to open a brand new window over here, and I'm going to enter a prompt. So one of the things that, usually makes the AI a bit more effective is if you tell it the role that you want it to play. So if you say act as a data, mapping expert, the quality of the output that you get is typically better than if you just tell it, hey, I want you to create some data mappings for me and do this and that. So I'm just going to say act as a data mapping expert. You will be provided with a source file that is in CSV format. We are going to specify mappings on this file. Your job is to show us what the target file would look like with these mappings applied. And then we can just go and paste in, here's my source file. Then we could do something like desired mappings. One will apply prefix to our parent and child columns. You see underscore. 2, we will map the account types with the following mapping. Right, so we can go and tell it what we're looking to do, and it's asking us to confirm some things. So these were just based on how I put in some custom prompts over here. So I have it set up in such a way where it can go and clarify what I'm asking it to do before it goes and does anything. We could turn those, custom prompts off if we wanted to just return the file. And so I'm just going to answer its questions. Correct in your assumptions. No additional transformations. We can also instruct. So if anyone's looking at this and saying, okay, this is great, it's going and applying my mappings, I want to do this in an automated fashion using the OpenAI API. How would I go and do something like this if it's going to give some explanations to what it's doing? You can also prompt the AI to say, please do not provide any explanations, just provide the target file. That way, if you are doing this programmatically, you're just pulling the destination. So we see that it did everything that we asked it to do. It replaced our blank fields with NA, revenue became R, expense became E, and it prefixed all of our accounts with AC underscore. So here's an example where you don't have to be a data person, and you don't have to go and know how to write code to generate these outputs. You can actually just tell the AI, here's what I'm starting with, here's what I'm looking to do, now go off and do it in English, and and it'll do it. Right? We can also tell it, assume that my source file is in a MySQL database called source table, and my target destination, another table called target. Please write the SQL code to perform mapping. and it'll go and give you a little bit of an explanation, and it goes in and writes the code for you to go and do this. So again, you can get very far not being technical in doing technical types of jobs over here just by using ChatGPT or any AI technology. The goal is, or the way you get to these types of outputs is you have to have an understanding of high level what it is you're trying to do, but B, also by practicing and working with the AI enough, what are some of the assumptions that it'll make, or some of the pitfalls you could run into if you're not explicit in your instructions. If you don't tell it that you're mapping from a table to another table, it's not going to generate SQL code for you. It's going to write a program that's going to convert one file into another file type. So, there are different things that you need to know of, how do I tell it to get the results that I'm expecting. That's why it's, in the next couple years, the real value is the prompt engineering of, knowing what to tell it, because, the information's there. It can give you accurate results. It's just a matter of, you have to be able to specify in a language that it can understand what it is that you're looking to do. So that was example number one of taking a source file that we know, telling what mappings that we want to be applied, and then having it generate the destination file so that we can see what it'll look like, as well as writing the code. And this is valuable too of say you have an ETL developer or somebody that's doing these transformations for you. Well, you don't want to have to wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is to go and see what the end format is going to be. You can just enter, here are the mappings that we're going to apply. What does this look like? And now you get a preview of the file before it actually gets, even developed. And you can make and iterate over, make any changes without having to, keep having your developer go back and forth and say, is this what you want? No, now is this what you want? How about this one? And by the fourth or fifth time, you finally get to, what it is that you're looking for. So next, we're going to run into an example of, say I'm provided with, a source file, a target file, and I want the AI to be able to tell me what happened to get from source to target. This is valuable in a couple different ways. First, from a documentation standpoint, rather than having to hire, your developer to go and build tables of, here is all the logic that's happening, you can have the AI do that, and also just being able to trace through different complexities of logic, the AI is very, very good at that. So what I have in my next example here is, again, I have telling it, you're a data expert. I'm going to provide you with a source file, a target file, and a few lookup files. So, what I'm doing here is I'm doing a transformation that doesn't just require, prefixing here, suffixing there, that kind of stuff. It's also there are going to be other files that you're going to have to look up against in order to get the information you're needing. I'm not telling it how it needs to look at all of this stuff. What I'm telling it is, for each of these files, create a table outlining, source, target, and logic, where you indicate, the field in the target, an English description of what logic is required to get from the source field to the target field. And then I also tell it, don't just look at column names, actually look at the data that's in here too, in order to really get that full picture of what's happening. So I have an example of, something that, and I'm telling it that each of these are tables. I'm giving it the names of each of these tables in a database. That way, when I ultimately ask it to write my SQL code to do that transformation, it has all the information it needs to do it. If I don't give those pieces of information, It's going to assume generic table names, and then I can't just go and copy and paste that code into into my ETL tool or my SQL editor to be able to verify it. It's not going to work because the names provided by the AI aren't going to match the actual table names that I have. That's why I do that. So we have some transaction IDs, we have customer IDs, dates, product IDs, so all different things that you would typically see as requiring lookups to other tables in order to get text descriptions of what they are. We have quantities, prices, and a sales rep ID for each of these. The target that we're looking to do is, we still have our transaction IDs. We still have the date. If you notice, the date's in a different format than what we provided it with. Our transaction IDs are prefixed. We have the customer name is the name instead of a unique identifier that's in there. Our product name is an actual name of a product instead of a unique identifier. We still have the quantity, we still have the price, and now we have a total revenue, which is going to be a calculation of the price times the number of units. And then we have our sales rep, which is the actual name of the rep instead of the unique identifier for it. So I gave it the name of my source table, gave it the name of my target table, and then I provide each of the lookups. So here's my customer lookup, here's my product lookup, here is my sales rep lookup. And by giving all of this information, it comes back and gives me a little bit of a description of what it's looking to do. And it goes and it takes each of the columns that are in my target file, tells me here's my source, here's the target, and then here is the logic that is in place here in order to get from source to target. So it automatically recognized without me telling it that we have a prefix on the transaction ID. It automatically recognized without me having to tell it to get from my source to my target, transactions, that we have to convert the date format in order to get it to match my target specification. My customer name, it knows what lookup to use to translate the customer ID to the name. Same thing with product. It knows the lookup to go in here, quantity sold. Here, it's a little bit tricky because if you notice, we didn't give it the exact same name in our source file as the target file. So it was able to look at the data and tell me that quantity and quantity sold are the same fields based on what it was seeing in each of those files. So, in the past, you go and you write, code to do all of this, someone has to go and specify and write out each of these, each logic for each column over here. Somebody else goes and looks and says, oh, I see quantity and quantity sold. Now I have to look back and start looking at data in there. And I mean, this was, a matter of seconds. It was able to determine that these fields are the same thing, even though they're not named the same thing. They might be in different cases, all that kind of stuff. It knows how to, translate and, with confidence that, that quantity and quantity sold are the same thing. Same thing with price. It's called unit price in the target, price in the source. Again, it's, it knows the two of those go together. Total revenue, I didn't tell it to multiply quantity times price in order to get my total revenue, but it knew based on, reading the columns and trying to understand what it means. It knows that, your price is multiplying your quantity times the unit price over there to get the total amount. And then again, with the sales rep, it knows, which table to go and look this up. So, this is a job that, if you had somebody, I mean, I did a bunch of these types of jobs in the past where someone just, gave me 10 different tables and said, go and figure out how all of these work together. And, depending on the size of the tables and everything that it's in it, it could take days or weeks to, just go and start creating diagrams to see what connects where and, come back with a 20-30% level of confidence, and and then iterate through it, right? And now in a matter of seconds, we get here's everything that I think needs to be done to do it. You can tell it, confirm that this is actually what's happening. If there's anything more that's needed, you can go and specify, oh, you didn't get that mapping right, do that. And again, in seconds, it just goes and addresses and fixes what went wrong with those pieces. So I tell it, this is great. Can you generate a SQL statement to apply all these mapping? Can you just do all this for me? It goes, sure, I'd love to, right? And it generates an efficient 10-15 lines of SQL over here, how to go and get everything from my source tables and put it into a target. And again, this isn't just a one table to another table. Like, we're using four or five different tables here to go and get the result. And it's able to, one, identify all of that, but two, code all those different relationships in there as well.
Fantastic, yeah.
And then, it goes and it gives you some reminders and notes over here. So one of the things that I could have done a better job when I gave it this command and is tell it, well, I never told it what type of database I was using. So, the SQL is fairly universal, but there's some nuances depending on the different technology that you're using. So, it's going and telling me, hey, look, these are different commands depending on what type of database you're using. Use this for MySQL versus use other formats for other types. So I could have told it, hey, do this for Oracle database, do this for Postgres, whatever, and it would go and write the code in that particular language, which is another area of value, because you might spend a year going and working with Oracle database. You then go and work with SQL Server, and all the code you wrote, it mostly translates over, but then there's some pieces that, that's not supported in this database technology versus the other. Instead of having to Google what's the syntax for changing the format of a date, you could just go and tell it and say, here's what I'm using, and it'll go and say, use this function versus that function, and so forth.
Fantastic. Yeah, cool.
So that was our second example of, deriving a mapping. The third piece that I wanted to just talk through, and this one will be fairly quick, is, converting one file to another and, having AI write actual code in order to give us, instead of going from one table to another table or one file to another file, can we go from one file type to a totally different file format and have it do that as well. So this last example here is I'm taking a CSV file. So just took our source file that we had, and I want to convert it to a JSON data format. Maybe I want to send this to a web service to push to a particular technology. And I don't want to have to go and try to format all these lines to push it in. Can you write me, I asked it for a Windows batch script. We could do the same thing with Python with, it can write more robust, commands and programming languages in here. But just so that way, I could quickly demo this piece, just ask it for a Windows batch script to convert. Here's my source file. Here's my target file, and it said, great, you can do all of this, give you, some text on here, and then I'm going to go and write your code for you. And not only am I going to write your code for you, I'm going to provide you with commenting on your code to tell you what each of the different pieces is doing, and anyone who's hired developers knows that, you might get some great output in terms of the code that's being produced. Half the time you don't know what's happening. It's not commented, so it's not something you can go in and easily edit and modify, when you need to, unless you, specifically task them with, commenting all of the code in there. It usually doesn't happen. So it goes through, it says, here's the code. put this in the command prompt or put it in a file, and then you can go and run it. So I ran the script, and then we have our JSON file that has, everything as specified.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, it does it in seconds, and I've run into situations where it hasn't gone, and there have been mistakes in the output that comes out. So you always want to make sure you're testing it. But if the output comes out is not what you're expecting, you can go back and tell it, hey, look, this is not what I'm expecting. You have this here instead of that. And many times it'll go, oh, that's my mistake, let me go and fix it, and it'll go and it'll correct it for you. So again, it might take a couple of iterations, but it's it's weird because you're having a dialogue with a robot, right? But but sometimes it takes a little bit of back and forth to get the output that you're looking for. This is an example of something that's straightforward, but if I had a little crazy format that I wanted to push through, doesn't always get it right the first time over there. But by you being able to provide, no, it should look like this instead of like that, just like you're having a conversation with a person of, if something doesn't look the way that you're expecting, you provide them with this is what I'm expecting this to look like, and then they go back and fix it. You can have that same kind of dialogue with ChatGPT and with other language models as well. So that way, you iterate through and you ultimately get to, the end result that you're looking for.
Cool. Oh, yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's really good because, as a HFM developer before, I've always had to map from different source systems and, different CSV files, different logics and whatever. This really does help it, from the mapping side. Even I've tried it with a CSV data kind of format and all this stuff. Helps with formatting, mapping, but also gives you commentary, which is great too. And even script writing where you need specific stuff, especially in FDME, where you need to do different real intricate stuff. I've seen it work and do it that way too. So in that sense, it's a real great guide. I mean, it doesn't mean that it negates the need for the developer because he's going to manage the process, but it makes his life much easier, in that sense. But yeah, thank you so much, Daniel, for today. It was really insightful and, definitely going to do more in the future. And have a great day. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. You too. Happy to be on and, to share this with your guests.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Take care then. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. You too.